Are we live? Are we live? We're
It's
live!
live. Hi.
Hi, everybody. It's the last day of
Hi,
Kwanzaa. So let me pull up. I don't know why I do this every time, but I never have the Ngozo Saba principle like up.
It's what we will call it tradition. Just,
Yes, I'm with you. I think
just make it
that's perfect.
tradition.
So this is I'm actually quite I've been excited for all of them. But I'm very excited about today's principle. All right, so
Meanwhile, I'm very nervous. So
but that's okay
because
because
you're so excited, like I'm like, don't mess up.
you're gonna be perfect. And like 98% of my excitement is because it's you. So like the fact that you're here means like 98% of the requirement has been fulfilled. So
Okay. That leaves me only 2% to fill in on my own. We're good. Okay.
yeah, you're great. All right. So as people are coming in, this is the last day of Kwanzaa, also known as the first day of the new calendar, Gregorian calendar year. And yeah, so happy New Year to folks who celebrate New Year on this
Yes.
day. And yes, happy last day of Kwanzaa. So I'm just gonna put the I want to tweet out that we're starting, but I'll do that in a second.
Yeah, I'm putting it on my Facebook.
Okay, awesome. So for those who are here, welcome. Hi, Tomi. So Imani is the principle for today. It's the last principle of Kwanzaa. And Imani refers to, or Imani refers to faith, which is to believe with all our heart in our people, our parents, our teachers, our leaders. Hi, Sherri. And the righteousness and victory of our struggle. So no big deal. We're good.
Right.
So this is a very important Kwanzaa principle. And I think it's important because I've heard Imani described as the transition principle because it's designed to, in part, remind us of the largesse of our project, of our work, right? Not
Okay.
like some of the principles are oriented, even though they're interpersonal and collective, some of the principles are oriented towards the self, like what's our purpose? Self-determination, right? But as you go through the principles, they become
Broader.
broader, right? And Imani is I think of it as, some people think of it as faith in the very traditional spiritual sense, like our religions, and the cosmologies that we find ourselves attracted to, and another dimension of Imani and faith is like little f faith. So faith in ourselves, a belief in ourselves, a belief in our people, our community, and so on. And that's where I feel like the transition part of the principle comes in, because it is encouraging. It could be, because everybody has different definitions, but it could be an encouragement to keep the faith, right?
Mm-hmm.
Despite what we are perceiving around us. Keep the faith, right? Believe in our people when they fail us. Believe in our parents when they fail us. Believe in our teachers when they are less than perfect. Believe in our leaders when they harm, right?
Yep.
Believe in the righteousness and the victory of our struggle, because ultimately, no matter what these humans do, there is something righteous about our struggle, right?
And part of the work of our struggle is dealing with the negatives that we receive or that we are impacted by the poor decisions that people make and that we make.
Yeah. So for you, and for people who are participating and watching, it's not a requirement to actually celebrate Kwanzaa in your personal life, right? That's not a thing. I'm not trying to convert people to Kwanzaa. More it's about using the principles as a framework to think about what we're reading and what we're creating and how we're using our imaginations, however we marshal those our imaginations, right? So for you, what does Imani or faith, what does it call up for you today?
I think a lot of what you said, really, because I mean, you know me, I do a lot of thinking in regards to faith, in regards to my faith, but also in regards to how I communicate and deal with and accept other people as well. Because one of the things that I heard a lot growing up in church is, like my pastor used to say, we are more than me, and things go better when we work together. So it's more than just what we're doing, it's the community effort that pushes us along and brings us success in things that we are attempting to accomplish. So it's faith in the God that I serve, and then also faith in the people that I choose to connect with, because as I extend that faith, and all your faith is choice. It's an active choice. So as I actively choose to put my faith into people, there are responsibilities that I have to make sure that my faith is well placed, and then responsibility that those people have to make sure that they are providing a return. So did that.
I I just have, that was the word. And I want to go back and drill down on things that you said, but in particular, I want to talk about the last part, like the co-responsibility of putting your faith in people. So I know that when I know that somebody is putting their faith in me, I have to be accountable to that, or I'm called into accountability, right? It's not a neutral relationship. And I know that when I'm putting my faith into others, that I have expectations, and I have hopes, and there's emotional and spiritual and intellectual and psychological investment in putting faith. And it's a risk. It means that I'm vulnerable. It means that I'm vulnerable. I'm vulnerable to disappointment, to feelings of betrayal, right? Because if I didn't put faith in, then I'd be totally fine. You could just live your life. It wouldn't impact me. But the minute I start to say, you know what? I trust you to be good to my people. I trust you to be kind to me. I trust you to not do harm. I trust you, whatever it is.
You keep saying trust over and over. Like,
yeah, that's a big
it.
deal.
Yeah, that's it.
So you use the words like you expect there to be a return, or there's a hope that there's a return. So I was wondering if you could talk about that, because reciprocity is a theme that's very important to me.
Oh, well, yeah, if I place my faith in you, and the expectation is, say, just on simple, like, basics, what we've seen this week, the people whom you've reached out to participate in the lives for the Kwanzaa Reflectathon. The thought is, if you contact those people and they all said yes, then we're not going to come down to the hour before and someone says, I'm not going to be able to do that anyway.
Yeah.
That is the expectation, barring something, drastic happening. The expectation is, if they say yes, they're going to present themselves accordingly. If they say yes, and then within plenty of time, which of course this year, because COVID and coziness, the time that would have otherwise been afforded really wasn't there this year. It would be time for you to be able to come up with a plan B if plan A fell through. And my expectation is, like, say you have, and I can say this is my expectation because you and I both know this isn't happening. But my expectation is that if something jumps off in my brain and I say, hey, I want to do a live about this and I would love for and Jerry to participate, that and Jerry's going to say, oh yeah, that will work for me. And that's the expectation across the board.
Yeah.
So there's some, and even if it's not this exact type of format, the expectation is because I have made myself available to you, then if needed, you would make yourself available to me. And that it is the reciprocity and the give and take, not just only of faith, but of relationship. Because that, like, building faith and being faithful to the people that you give a kitty about is how you build relationships.
Yeah. And because we're here on Onyx Pages and it's a bookish channel, I want to talk about something that just popped into my head that I am slightly uncomfortable talking about. So this is good. It's going to be a growth stretch comment. So if we to believe in with all our heart in our writers, in our authors, and their place in the victory of our struggle and the righteousness of our struggle. And I'm thinking about a particular author that I have issues with, and you know who she is. And so, we expect a lot on BookTube. We expect a lot from our writers, and in particular on Black BookTube, we expect a lot from our Black writers. Mm-hmm. Right? We expect them to, or I'll speak for myself, I expect them to play a role in our collective emancipation, which is why I get so upset when I feel let down, right? When they don't deliver. And when I get really excited, take a sip. And when I get really excited when they do deliver, right? Now, speaking to myself, they didn't contract with me. Like, they didn't say, and Jerry, I'm going to write this so that you feel good in your Blackness. Like, no one called me. And yet sometimes I act as though like they did.
And they won't.
And they won't. Right? But sometimes I act as though like they're serving me in particular. Right? Mm-hmm. And I feel like sometimes, and I talked about this in one of my videos about like, should we even be reviewing books, right? Like, should we be rating books? And how is it, like, how do we understand this contract as readers, right? Between the reader and the writer, the Black reader, let me just be clear, the Black reader, the Black author, right? Like, what is that relationship? And how do we reflect that concept of like Imani faith when we are reading and reviewing and purchasing and supporting the work of Black authors? Do you have thoughts on that you want to share?
I have. My thoughts are absolutely not as developed as yours, because it's not something that I take a lot of time to think about in particular, mostly because I gravitate towards specific authors who I'll probably have a whole bunch of faith in, but did not really translate it in my head as having faith in them. But for the particular author to whom you are speaking of, I wouldn't say that there's, especially after, I wouldn't say that there's faith. I would say that there's hope. I would say that there's hope, and there's hope that decisions that were made will not be made again in possibly the next life of whatever they choose to do, writing wise. When I say next life, I mean like next stories that they choose to do, not necessarily with this particular group that we're having an issue with, but the next thing that they choose to do. I hope that it's a learning experience. But I don't know that they have enough of, this is going to sound really, really bad, but I don't know that they have enough of a bibliography for me to have faith in them as a writer yet. Like, it's Bernice McFadden. I have the utmost faith in her. And even if she could write trash and get a pass.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have a relationship with her that spans decades. Tananarive do. I have a relationship with her writing. So there's a difference in putting faith. Like, I can't put faith in an author just yet who's done like a book and a half. I wouldn't even really call it 2 books, a book and a half.
Mm-hmm.
So, somebody that I haven't seen enough of to feel like I know them personally. Does that make, like, I spent a lot of time over the years on Bernice McFadden's blog, because that's where all of her, even though she didn't share personal tidbits of her life, she shared her research and she shared her going into her genealogy and things, and the way that she wrote about how she was going about that, it gave me an insight into her mind. And what was important to her. I haven't had that experience with a lot of authors that I'm reading now. So yeah, I would say that's more hope, not necessarily faith for that person.
So I have so for people in the chat, what are you, so when you think about Imani and faith, and there's sort of 2 questions that I'm going to ask you for people in the chat. So number 1, have you read a book did you read a book last year in 2020 in which in which a character developed faith in themselves, or faith in others, or faith in community? So where within the plot you could find the principle of Imani faith. And the second question is, what is your view? What's your opinion on whether we should place faith or hope in Black writers as Black people? Is that fair? Like, how do you wrestle with that, the relationship between the Black reader and the Black writer?
And also, and this is something you don't have to answer in chat, this is just something to think about, but when you place faith in an author, and what are you looking for in reciprocity? Like, what are you particularly looking for? Like, when Jerry places her faith in an author, she's looking for an author who will include in a way that doesn't seem to be like, I just dropped some diversity in the plot in regards to sexual orientation or faith base or family structure. She's looking for something that is part of the story, not just dropped into the story. So what are you looking for when you're looking for those things? Because your experience and your lifestyle impacts how you expect that faith to be returned. So you don't have to put that in chat. Just
that's
on that.
So with that question thrown out, let's say hello to people. So hi, Tommy. Also, who's right there? Yes, you're a favorite too. Hi, Sherri.
Hi, Sherri.
Welcome back, Esther. Nice to see you. So many days.
Hey.
You're here. Hi, Sarah. Hope you're well. Hello, Caleb. Nice to see you. Believing with all our heart in our writers is so hard. I agree with Njeri 100%. Believing with all our heart.
Like, do you like the hugeness of that statement?
Yeah.
It's a huge commitment.
Yeah. You know what? It's funny because, like, as a lawyer, I read the principles differently than I used to 7 years ago. Because, like, in legal practice, every word matters, right? So, like, it didn't just say like to believe in. It was qualified, right? It was like, this isn't just some half-ass belief. Like, you need your whole to engage, like,
believe it with your whole chest.
Your whole chest. Right? You're stepping in 100%, right? And I'm like, how many writers do I believe in with my whole heart? Nalo Hopkinson. I believe in Nalo Hopkinson, who
with your whole
was
heart.
recently made a grandmaster of science fiction. Oh my God, that feels like the Animal Crossing delight. Like, so yeah, I believe in Nalo Hopkinson with my whole heart, right? And as you said, Tati, like, why, right? Why? And I'm like, I have every single of her books on the shelf, multiple copies, right? I give away, I love them, whatever. But why? Because from the first book, it was clear to me, right? It was clear to me from the first book that she was invested in telling my story. From book one.
Yeah.
And so everything after that, right? Mostly hits, maybe a miss here or there, but for the most part, right? Every single story, even if it doesn't reflect me, right? I trust and I trust in the world that she's built, because the world that Nalo Hopkinson creates is a world where me, my wife, our children, our families, our communities will be safe and welcome. That no matter what.
That is so important.
It's so important, right? That's not the world that I can't trust other writers, right?
To create that safe space.
We're not even imagined into the story for the most part.
Yep.
Right. And so, like, and I'm not going to go through a list of names, but I could, right? You know, and so so I believe in Nalo Hopkinson with all of my heart in terms of her writing. I believe in Octavia Butler with all of my heart, right? And my list in terms of people I believe in or have faith in with all my heart versus hope, my faith list is actually quite short. My hope list is very
long. Yes.
Yeah. So I love the distinction you've made because it's helped me understand myself better. So thank you for that. That was an important distinction. Yeah. Hi, Bree. Hi, Caleb. Yeah, the part on rating has me thinking. Yeah, it was something. Okay, who else? Oh, wait, whoops. Okay. Which author are we talking about? We'll take that offline.
She knows.
I'm not saying that was getting recorded. This is why I always look up author interviews while reading as well. You know what? That's super important.
And I don't do that.
Speak on it.
The only author that I have done that with while I was reading, who was a new to me author, because like some of the authors that I love to read, I started reading before, you know, everybody's lives was on the internet. But for a new to me author, the only author I've done that with recently is Jennifer Nasabuga Mukumbi. And that is because when I was reading Chintu, the response that I felt within my soul to Chintu as a novel, I was like, who is this heifer? And with everything that's in here, it's not like a direct correlation to things that like to the Bible, but it felt like it was pulling from some things. And so I needed to know. Yeah. And so I pulled up some of her interviews, and then to hear her talk about one of her characters was Ham, one of Abraham's kids, and this, that. And I was like, oh, I want something. Okay, great. You felt it's very. Go ahead.
No, you often use the phrase "I feel so seen."
Yeah,
that's what I feel like you're talking about.
Yep, that's it. And I think it's also important too to make the distinction that when I am reading, I'm not coming from the experience, because I'm not coming from the experience of readers like Jerry or Caleb or Tommy, because I am not coming from the LGBTQ plus, don't want to mess it up, perspective. And so when the things that I am looking for when reading, and that has broadened as my relationship with Jerry has grown over the past couple of years. But primarily when I was reading, I wasn't looking for that. I was just looking for somebody with Black skin who wasn't described like a piece of caramel. So yeah, That too, but it's a lot of times, particularly, and I'm gonna like Chintu. I've read it twice, and at both times that I've read it, there's one section that just has me. I literally feel like Makumbi dug into my brain and took a little bit out of my heart and put it on the page, and I was like, this is it. This is it. This is me. And so but the way that I have that kind of experience, you all deserve that kind of experience. Your community deserves, which is part of my community, deserves that kind of experience as well. So
yeah. And that's a word. So let's just leave it there. So, to give me more perspective on what influenced their writing, especially if their politic is different from my own. Yeah. And like you read, like Caleb, you read nonfiction and biographical works as well. So like the book about Black doctors, or written from the perspective of a Black doctor. I think you read Janet Mock's autobiography. So even when you're reading people telling their own stories, right? Like I don't read a lot of autobiographies, although I'm attracted to the notion, but I just don't do it. It really helps you to understand, what's in the mind of the person. Like I remember when I was reading a lot of Bell Hooks, I also enjoyed reading essays that she wrote about her own writing. And
I didn't know she did that. I haven't read any Bell
one
Hooks.
book called, what is it, Written in the Rapture or something like that. Anyway, a former partner has all my Bell Hook books, and I'm never getting them back. It's fine. It was a gift. No, it's fine. It's done. I'm just like looking, but they're just not here. They're never going to be here. They're never coming back. But like I like Remember the Rapture or something, like Remember the Rapture, and it's a book about Bell Hooks writing. I like to read books about writers when they talk about their own writing. I have on my list Samuel Delaney's book about his own writing. And so that's apparently it's an incredible piece of work.
Have you read all of his books?
No, God, no.
Okay.
I've only read 2.1/10 of like.
I'm scared to tackle Dahlgren, even though I have it on my Kindle.
Was just reaching.
Yeah, I have it on my Kindle, so I don't feel that.
This is where I am in Dahlgren. And I've done this.
Oh my God!
I've done this stroll 3 times in my life, from page 1.
Okay, so I don't feel bad.
No, this page 1 to 60. I've done this 3 times in my life, and I know it's amazing, but I just it's hard. It's hard for me to read it. Okay, so Raybearer. So Bree, Raybearer reminded you of Faith and
I haven't read it.
Yeah. So Jordan Ufweko's Raybearer. So I'm gonna hold them up. Last show, hold them up. So why, Bree? Why does this represent Faith?
Without spoiling. Love you, Bree.
Without spoiling, yes. Oops, you don't have to call out YA authors like that.
Take the F off, though. That's one.
Hi, Whitney. To be honest, I look for different shades of melanin, Black nuances, and extra points for hair diversity.
Hair diversity, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I love that too. I'm actually, because of the Kwanzaa Reflectathon, I'm re-listening to The Deep. Actually, no, I'm rereading The Deep Audible. The first time I read it and the second time I read it, it was just the book.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm hearing Daveed Diggs. It's because Brittany talked about Daveed Diggs as the narrator, and I'm seeing so much more and experiencing so much more. So that's really cool. But yeah, the point that I was going to make was that Bree, I the first couple of times I read The Deep, I didn't realize how much hair texture was described in the book.
Okay, I need to reread it for that too.
And that's
ISIS.
Yeah.
I need to get The Deep back. Thanks. It's out of stock.
Oh, I see.
Or Sister Sci-Fi. Yeah.
I was like, where's ISIS? Okay, so let's see. Yes, for the ACE. Yeah, Animal Crossing. Thank you, Brittany, for bringing Animal Crossing into our lives.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. I find it hard to believe fully in the writers because it's hard for me to believe that one person is without flaws, but I do trust, emphasis, certain authors to make sure I feel seen. And who are those authors, Bree? I'm curious.
Yeah, and also nobody is without flaws. So putting faith in people is not trusting that they will meet your expectations without failing.
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody's perfect, and there's going to be those times when they fall short and when they fail, and the benefit of having a relationship that exercises your faith in people, and this is hard for us as people to do, is to give to people what we want. When I screw up, woo, my expectation is that if I own up to my screw up and I apologize, and that I'm going to make conscious efforts to correct the error that I've made, and then to not make that same error again. Yeah. And we have to extend that same thing to people, even people we know, people we don't know, in this case, authors. Yeah. They're not gonna, the author we were speaking of, they didn't get it right. They got it really, really wrong. Mm-hmm. But giving an opportunity for correction, they're not going to own up to the fact that they got it wrong. Giving an opportunity for redemption. Like, we have to have a redemption arc. That's something that we love to read in books. We have to give it to people. We have to give people redemption arcs, and that's truly acting in faith.
Yeah, and there's a phrase that I use a lot, which is, we shouldn't crucify people to their past mistakes, and we shouldn't pin people to who they were, right? Mm-hmm. Right? Because I know for me, I am not the same person I was 10 years ago.
I am not either, and thank God I ain't meet some of y'all back then.
Right? You know what I mean? Right? Like Tommy and I, like I say to Tommy, I'm so glad we did not meet in my 20s. Like, for real, right? Like, I'm really, really glad that this was the time that we met, right? And I think that is part of Imani and putting faith in people, making sure, and in our communities and so on, is trusting that just like we grow and change, and just like we want people to give us the freedom and the latitude to grow and to learn, we should also be doing that to other people, especially people who have caused us harm, right? Yeah. And it might take time.
It might take years.
It might take lifetimes, right?
It might take years. And the blessing of life is, if you have the years, you have the time for it to take.
Right. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we need to, we don't need to forgive. I'm a big believer in, you don't need to forgive. You don't need to forget. It's fine to hold people accountable for harm. And that can also be harmonious with creating space for that person to demonstrate that they have learned and have done something different, right? Like, that's kind of that's how I interpret Imani, right? And as a Black queer person, I have to live with that complexity, because if I didn't, then I would not talk to anybody. Like, I wouldn't. I would.
But it's not just you. If we didn't, a whole bunch of us wouldn't talk.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't have the space. We differ on we know this. You and I differ on forgiveness, because in my opinion, forgiveness it's more about me. It's not about the other person. Like, I can forgive you and not fuck with you.
Yeah.
But I have to forgive you so that I am not holding on to that. But I believe, and it took years for me to get to that point of understanding what forgiveness could be. And there are other people who disagree. Like, we don't mesh on our ideas of forgiveness. And because this is where my growth is stopping.
Oh, that's a wrap. So we're not even imagined into the story. Yes, that's a big one for me. Because for me, If you're writing fiction and in your wildest imagination, you can't imagine someone like me, we're done.
Yeah.
Like, it's fiction. You're making it up. Like, you are world building, meaning you are building a world, meaning it's a blank canvas. And the only limitation are your own values and judgments. Right? And all of that, you already have the book deal. It's already happening. It's already there. And even still, in this imaginary science fiction world, in this future, I am not there. We have problems. Like, we have problems. I jumped in at the end of the conversation and didn't know. Well, scratch that question. Bree, check your DMs.
Yeah, we're good.
So authors tell on themselves sometimes. I look up interviews randomly, like if something perks my antennas. Yes, for sure. Also welcome. Yeah, authors telling themselves sometimes. Yeah, I've seen Octavia Butler. Octavia Butler in her interviews has said, like, I got this thing wrong. Like, even when you hear her talking about Survivor, right?
Just listen to her talk. Like, I'm just listen to
her ability to self-reflect and to talk about correcting her work. And, you know, and I think that's where you build in that faith and trust, because you see, and that's what I love about the Octavia E. Butler slow read that we're co-hosting together with Isis. The thing that I love about that is that because we're reading in near chronological order, we can start seeing things like, you know, where were the gaps in Kindred and how were they filled in Wild Seed, right? Like, as we move on, you know, how do we
and there are other things that I literally cannot wait for us to discuss, but I'm not going to say because they're like books down. But it has to do with her evaluating and adjusting as she went through writing stories. She's still alive.
She is still alive.
Yeah.
Not sure I said hi already, but hey. Esther, I have faith in Black writers who are experimental in their writing and who do not consider the white gaze when they are writing.
Now, you know who this, and they've only written, this is like totally the antithesis of the other author that we were talking about. You know who does this? And they've only written a book and a half, literally a book and a half, River Solomon.
Yeah.
River Solomon.
I remember when I just
I read An Unkindness of Ghosts because of you, and then couldn't even talk. Like my review of that it was so hard to do, but that book, wow.
Yes, and like, this is what happens when I feel so seen, right? Like,
you know, don't flip through too much because I'm scared of what the pages look like.
Yeah. So. And I can't wait for Sorrowland and everything because rivers.
Same. Kay, feel free to DM me on IG. We can have a whole discussion.
I love and have faith in Irenosen Okoji, who presents fantastical, messy Black women in a way that does not cater to the respectability politics so often presented in literary fiction. Come through, Esther.
Never heard of
Come through. I want
and so now.
Yeah, I like some recommendations. Esther, where would you suggest people begin? Come through. Thank you. Yes, don't worry, Cabe. It's fine. It's fine. No grammar poo-poo here. That's no grammar popo here. We're good. We're good. Yes, I read for the emotional experience, or to feel seen, or to explore a time space that I can't have yet to experience. Yes. Yes. I love the specific call to Isis. Yes.
Because we have a relationship.
Yeah. I'm so used to not seeing myself in stories that I have to intentionally seek it out. And even when I seek it out, I am prepared for it to be trash. Daughters of Henri. Yes, I said it.
Yeah, I am on the. I haven't read Daughters of Envy yet,
Neither
and
have I.
I plan to read it because I bought it on my Kindle for 99 cents. Still may have paid too much, but I plan to read it just so I can have a conversation with Brittany in regards to if I agree, if I disagree, partially agree, whatever. But I do fully agree with the first part of her comment about not being so used of, to not seeing yourself in other stories. I grew up reading VC Andrews, like that was my, yeah, which was
So did I.
Ash, but highly entertaining. Tara Ash, like not just trash, Tara
No,
Ash.
that's like 3 syllables.
But highly entertaining. And I vividly remember being 11 years old and going to visit my dad. And when I went to visit my dad, like that was playtime. I had 2 weeks where I had no responsibilities. The most work I did would be to go to his office, and he gave me the Glory Field because I think I took like 2 or 3 books with me when I went. I was famous for leaving books at my dad's house, and my stepmom would call me and be like, you left some stuff here and they have a library sticker on them, so I'm gonna mail them back to you. But yeah, VC Angels and Babysitters Club, but he gave me the Glory Field, and I had such a visceral negative reaction to being forced to read the Glory Field. I didn't finish it that summer. I have, of course, since read it. That was years ago. But I didn't read it that summer because I had spent at that point a lot of time with my grandparents, with my aunts and my uncles, my great aunts and uncles. And so I was inundated with stories in regards to growing up in the South during the Civil Rights Movement, being able to, I remember vaguely, because I was a very little kid when my great-grandfather died. No, great-grandfather died. But the discussion of sharecropping and what that meant. And so I was like, I'm good. I don't need to read a book about this. I just heard Granddaddy talking about this like 6 months ago. I'm good. And the change, and this is also because you change as you grow in whatever thing that you're in. Then I was 9 or 10. Some authors are 9 or 10 in their writing, and I have grown since then, and I see the importance of it now. But back then, I just wanted to read a book that was fun and had some inappropriate scenes in it, and that was not so. In some ways, was not relatable to my life.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that it wasn't something that I could necessarily relate to because it actually took me far away. Completely different reader now. Even when I read white folks stuff, completely different reader now.
I really appreciate that because we were both born in a certain decade. So I was very, I wouldn't say I was glad that the Babysitters Club didn't look like me, but now that you say it, there was some relief in saying that's what those people do. Like Sweet Valley High.
Yes.
With Elizabeth and Jessica. I was just like,
I love those books. It's like this is not my high school.
No. And Danielle Steele and VC Andrews, every time she said like, corn silk hair and cerulean blue eyes, I was like, yeah, all that inappropriate sexual behavior is a thing that people with cerulean blue eyes.
All of this statutory rape is white shit. Like that.
And I was just like, there was something, it was fantasy. Like it was fantasy. It was actually, it wasn't romance. It was science fiction and fantasy when I read that stuff, right? Because I'm just like, my church going backside, right? This is not a thing. We don't live in castles. We don't have horses. And we certainly don't do that with, dark and handsome strangers who show up in the middle of the night, long walk, when their car is breaking down. And that's not a thing that happens. There are no.
That's not what happens.
No, we don't even have attics, let alone flowers in them, right? So like that, like all of that.
Attics, that could be a whole nother addition because we did have attics. My grandparents.
I didn't have attics.
Okay, yeah, my grandparents were the first. Like they had they had 3 houses that my granddaddy built.
Mm-hmm.
And they were the first they were the first Black people on their block to have a brick house. And that house had an attic. But you could not house people
in the attic.
In the attic.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't, we've never had none of the homes in my family currently, nobody that I'm related to has an attic, right? It's like those, that's not a thing, right?
This townhouse has an attic. I ain't going up in there.
Okay, let's go. It's 6:45 and I'm still at the 6:31 comment.
Oh,
the cover is everything. Sadly, the only good thing about Daughters of Inri, Esther Jones, I bought because of the cover, and we all got played.
Right. Okay, wait, read that.
Yeah, I'm also super intentional with my reading, though BookTube has pulled me towards reading hyped books, which are hit or miss for me.
Facts. But on the cover discussion, because I have to say that Dee and I bitched for a good 2 or 3 years about how fugly some of these Black covers have been looking in the past, even with the YA books. And so, yes, we're getting gorgeous covers, but I truly believe that there needs to be some, like, if your book is trash, you don't deserve a gorgeous cover. Save that cover for a good book.
Which is why I think in this year, when I start talking, you're so cute. Tommy's like smiling over here. When I start talking about books, I want to distinguish the cover artist from the writer. Like, I want to start doing that, because like, we buy books because of the covers. We buy a lot of the time, right? New books, new to us writers, we buy because of the colors. Like, I didn't know about Jordan Fueko before. And then I saw the cover and I was like, oh, whatever story earned that cover must be good, right? And that's part of how things go. I wasn't inspired by the Daughters of Inri cover, so
yeah, I thought the cover was gorgeous. It's not my kind. Like, there's a particular cover that I gravitate towards,
right.
And none of
weapons, right? Weapons,
weapons, capes. And yep, some kind of body armor.
Yeah.
The day a Black author or Black cover artist hops on that, every book could be shit. I will buy it.
There's one actually, I don't know where it is, but Sword and there it is, Stone and Steel. It's not exactly what you just said, but I found the cover. Have you seen this one?
No.
I think you should. I'll give you some time to recover. Here, let's do it again. Ooh.
Okay, yeah, that I'm going straight to Amazon when we get off of this.
Ebony Dunbar. Okay, so for me, Nnedi Okorafor, she wrote in Who Fears Death about an experience I went through, and I never felt more seen. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. I need to reread Who Fears Death. That was a hard book for me.
Yeah, I think it was.
That was a hard book for me.
And I feel like a lot of people felt seen with Who Fears Death, and there weren't a lot of non-traumatic experiences in this. Yeah. So thank you for sharing, Sarah. I'm sure whatever you were talking about was very difficult, but yeah, I'm glad that you felt seen. And I think that is how, and a lot of people trust Nnedi Okorafor, and we should trust Dr. Okorafor, right? Because, and even in distinguishing her work from Afrofuturism, I think that's only leveled up the amount of trust that people have in her work, because
and her passion behind get it right. Like I have said this time and time again, Google me. Like that's the tone that it comes out with, like Google me. Yeah. But her passion behind making sure that she is properly categorized. But yeah, Who Fears Death was that was a hard read.
I put that up there with Freshwater.
I haven't read Freshwater yet because I'm not ready for another hard read.
Oh, Freshwater. It's Freshwater.
I have it. It's in here.
Hold it.
It's in here. Look who's here. Look who's here. But it's in here.
Got you. So currently trying to get my TBR together without BookTube influence, but I watch you all and y'all make it very different. Yeah, it's this whole thing about hyped books. So here's the cure. Watch content creators you trust.
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Whose hype you can trust.
Because some of the content creators,
Woo! As I said, watch content creators whose hype you can trust, develop a relationship with them, right? So that when they get excited about things, you can put your faith in that excitement, right? And there are lots of content creators like that out there, right?
Yeah.
And as you develop, and it's not about whether they're lying or not. That's not what I mean. When you
Oh, that's what I meant.
well, that's why I'm distinguishing my comments from yours. So what I mean is, when you're watching these content creators, when they're excited, watch if they have a TBR or they have a haul and they're so excited. Like if somebody's excited at a haul, like that's fine, right?
We all like buying stuff.
That's you bought something or you got it out of the library, you love the cover, you like you want to be a part of the woo, right? The woo, it's a new Fenty thing, woo, right? Like that's great, that's totally fine. But it's when they're reviewing it and they're excited about it, right? Like if they're excited and the book is trash, or they're excited and they give you no reasons for why they liked what they read,
or the review is the cover blurb that you can just read on the back of the book.
Yeah, right. Then you start getting into a position where you can decide, well, this is a content creator who I'm going to go to because I know that they're being truthful. I know that they're reading,
Yeah.
at like 1.0 to maybe 2.0. Like they're reading, listening, reflecting, contemplating, and putting thoughts into their reviews. And as you start doing that, and as I started doing that and limiting who I watch, right? I have been able to put more faith in the hype because I'm curating the hype.
Yes.
Right? Pre-curating, right?
Yeah.
If you get excited about something, if Brittany gets excited about something, if Sherri gets excited about something, if there are tons and tons of I'm lying, maybe 20 content creators. I mean, that was the wine. About 20 content creators. If they say, in Jerry, this is a book, we need to get on this. You know what I mean? Then I will get super excited about it, right? If I see Breeze reviews, or if I see even the way, like, I love that Ashley doesn't like a book, she's gonna tell you she doesn't like it. If she's disappointed,
and she's gonna tell you why.
And she'll tell you why. She'll take 48 minutes to tell you why.
Tell you why, yeah.
So then when she's done, the next book that she's talking about that wasn't so great, you can cross-reference, right? Because you're creating a relationship with those content creators. Even for me, the first booktuber that I came across was Adri at Perpetual Pages. And I'm like, first of all, I know that if there's a review even up, right? If there's something up being said about the book, right? Then that means that Audrey has put some faith in it. And when I watched their Stephen King It review, which was such a beautiful, like, eloquent, don't read this review. Like, I read this whole book, so you wouldn't have to. That I was like, bloop, 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 trust meter up, right? And like, just so many beautiful, minds on BookTube who are reading with purpose, who are honest, self-reflexive, even with authors that they really, really like. And that's the hype I'll buy into.
Yeah.
That's my TED Talk. Love that book. Yes. Authors I trust: N.K. Jemisin, Toni Morrison, Maya Angelou, Paulo Coelho. Yes. Walter Mosley, I need to do a video on authors I need to start reading more of, because Walter Mosley is one of them. And also Walter Mosley has a masterclass. And I'm like, I need to get on that. Dr. Okorafor, Jhumpa Lahiri, who I don't know.
I have not read any Jhumpa Lahiri, but I have never heard a negative review about a Jhumpa Lahiri book. And that's from across the board. Back when I was watching whoever I could find on BookTube, never had heard a negative review about Jhumpa Lahiri.
Yeah, you're at that point too, Tati. It's amazing. Yeah, that's true. Even with George M. Johnson's All Boys Aren't Blue, they explain how, like, they shouldn't have dead named their cousin while explaining her story. Yeah. Like when they go back, like who was I was watching somebody the other day. It was an author that was just like, yeah, I really screwed that up. LaSalle Sambury, whose debut YA novel is coming out. So LaSalle is an author tuber. She's Canadian. She lives in Ontario. She's the one that has Blood Like Magic, Blood Like Magic. Is that what it's called? Somebody correct me.
I've seen, I think if that's the title, I've seen the book.
And so I watched, she's an author tuber, and I watched her videos, and she was talking about like getting the romance wrong in something that she'd written. She's like, and she was just I trust her so much. Like, she's very self-reflexive. She's what you see is what you get. She's very confident about the stuff she's good at. She's also confident about the stuff she's not good at. Yeah, she's just like,
that's my kind of person. Like,
I love that.
I suck at this.
Yeah, I suck at this. I'm stellar at that. Also suck at this. And I'm like, yeah. To trust.
Yeah.
I say dead name because I don't necessarily like that term, in quotes.
In quotes, yeah. Got
you. Oh, sorry. Where are we? Woo, okay.
There's a lot. Like, you're going to have to.
Okay. There's a lot. I started on Kindness of Goats today. That's great. River Salt. Yes. Akiemezi. Yes. Then I have to say, like, I get so excited about Solomon and Emezi. Octavia Butler was interviewed by some very problematic people, especially during the 80s, and the way she handles her interviews is mind-blowing. Professionalism to the fullest.
Absolutely. And so was Toni Morrison. And Toni Morrison would call them both out.
Yep.
The 80s were full of problematic interviewers.
Yeah, like, I think somebody said something, yeah. Oh, yeah, that interview with Toni Morrison, when they're like, as a Black writer, don't you think, and she was
like, you don't even know how racist that question is.
Yeah.
But she said it with such compassion.
Yeah.
And like, not chastising. It's just, you so dumb, you don't know what you don't know. And I was like, this is my mother chastising me. And this chick don't even know she just got read.
Yeah. And, and Octavia Butler was so gracious when, and so sometimes a little self-deprecating, I think, but also just very realistic about her work. Like, when she's talking about Parable of the Sower, she's like, yeah, I'm not sure if that, like, it's trade paperback. I'm not really sure if it's changed anything, right? Meanwhile, I'm just like,
it's changed me.
It's changed generations.
Yeah.
And I, and hopefully, in the Afro future and other realms, she's seeing that comes out, but like, I don't think she didn't know at the time. I'm going to give River Solomon another go. Yes, Esther,
please do.
You will do.
And that. I would suggest, just like for Octavia, we suggest don't start with fledgling. I would suggest don't start with the deep. Start with an Unkindness of Ghosts.
No.
An Unkindness of Ghosts builds such a relationship between the reader and the community, not just the main character, whose name just Aster. Thank you. Whose name just out of my head. But it's not just a relationship between the main character and the reader. It's a relationship between the people that Aster comes in contact with on this generation ship, the people that Aster has been living with on this generation ship. And it's so, like, at one point I was confused about the levels, and then all of a sudden I could see it in my head. And you don't even realize that you have put yourself in this ship. I would not suggest starting with the deep.
I would not, and I think I would definitely say start with an Unkindness of Ghosts. Like, walk with River Solomon through their journey. And I can't wait to see where we're going to end up with Sorland. But with River Solomon, if you are going to start with the deep, because some people will because of the length, right? If you are, then spend some time learning about the story, right? Learn about clipping, learn about
listen to the song.
Listen to the song, right? Like locate the deep within its historical context.
Yes.
Right? There's a reason.
I listened to the song by clipping the entire year, every day, the entire year before the deep came out. There is a different relationship and understanding that you have of the story. And then, it's not written in chronological order. There are some flashback chapters that I went back and read after I finished them.
Yeah, and there's some Easter eggs in there that I didn't. And Easter eggs are items or plot tips that plot points that you'll find in stories that remind you of other stories or
Other stories, yeah.
But if you notice, like River Solomon, they have been very, very, very careful in all of the renderings of like the authorship and the authorial credit for this book. River Solomon with David Diggs, William Hudson, Jonathan Snipes, right? So find all those people and see, where this story picks up. Like and there's a whole chapter at the end, the afterword by Clipping. The book you currently hold in your hands and are likely upset that you read too quickly and that is now over is only one step in what its editor Nava Wolf described as a game of artistic telephone. Like, you know what I mean? Like this offering is
it's the trade-off of history. It's literally the trade-off. Clipping that we have our history. Clipping made a song about our history and those who were thrown overboard, and then River Solomon took that and made a book and consulted with Clipping about. Typically, when that's done, you don't have the other artists that you can collaborate with and discuss it. I could keep talking. I'm gonna shut up.
It's fine. And also, with the deep too, like it is an example of cooperative economics, because I'm sure that because 4 people are listed on that cover, and the deep was by more than one person. It was a collectively produced piece of work.
And faith.
And I think, sorry?
And faith.
Yeah, because they had
Clipping had to trust River Solomon with their work and with bringing their work to the page. It's like from book to screenplay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's trust of the ancestors too, right? With the memory, right? And so the deep, the deep is a story that I need to sort of revisit. Whew. Esther same, I had to reread the deep. I was in the right headspace at first. That's how I felt about Janet Mock. Her interviews made me so angry to watch. Like, she was interviewed by some white man who just, I don't even want to get into it. And it was the most viewed interviews on YouTube. Yeah.
Of course.
I wish more people would read Irenasin Okoji's short story collections, Nudibranch and Speak a Grantula. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you for the recommendations. Loc'd, I think because The Deep is so unlike any other book I've read, I found it more difficult. We'll try again. And also, Esther, like, you have support, so you can like connect with us or other people who have read it, because it's an experience. And so do you. We can have like a chat. I agree. I'm reading more short stories this year, adding this to my TBR. Writing is challenging, but so worth it. I'm trying to speed through. The Deep is great if you're into those. I feel like they're handling her like a paradox, like they were surprised a Black woman could write science fiction and be great at it. And like, and that last part, Blue Black, and like she should be surprised too. There's just one interview. It's like, oh my God, you're so. It basically it was the equivalent of saying you can write, and Octavia was like,
duh,
I'm a writer.
Yeah,
that's prerequisite. Can we talk about the story? Like, can we, or are we going to spend all this time with you and think, oh my God,
being so surprised that a Black person can write? Get the out of my face.
Definitely going to listen at Shade Tree Reads. I'm all here for David Diggs. Okay. LOL, amen. The disrespectfulness of, so when I saw, for example, Emezi being interviewed by Rivers, I was like, wow, this is how it should be. I have not seen that.
I have not seen that interview, and I purposely haven't watched it. I knew it happened, but I didn't watch it because I hadn't read Freshwater. So
Rivers Beyond the Year. Yeah. Yes, that Stone and Seal cover. Yes. The cover. Adding to my birthday wish list. Oh yes. This month. Sips tea. Whew. Okay.
Yeah,
this was such a good read. I'm not sure what that was about. I really liked it.
These are about reviews.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh yes, I really liked it. I really liked it. Diamond the truth about.
Oh, jeez.
I read this so you wouldn't have to. Y'all are the real answer. I love Lizelle. I love Lizelle as well. Yeah. Thank you, Blood Like Magic. Thank you so much. Can anyone who knows the last two booktubers mentioned please put the name of their channels in the chat?
I don't remember who. Yeah, we'll have to watch that back.
Okay.
To put it in the comments. Yeah.
If it was
it may have been Audrey.
Yeah, Audrey from Perpetual Pages.
Perpetual Pages.
Stunning reviews, like the content. Yeah, great. And who else did I mention? I don't know who else I mentioned.
I don't either.
Okay, well we can chat.
Yeah.
Tony shut down racist questions so eloquently. Okay. Oh,
there it is.
That.
Caleb.
I love y'all.
You want to go
for the win. For the win. You started with the deep. That's cool. Freshwater. Start with pet for. Now that is very interesting. That is very interesting. I'm curious, Caleb, about why you would recommend starting with pet for Akwaeke Emezi's work. I'm interested in that. So yeah, say more. I started with the deep. It needs to be read again. I read the deep. Hi, Gina. And also, Gina, saw your video today. It was great. Thank you for doing a video for Flexathon. Yes. And I loved what you had to say about Akata Witch. Everybody go check out Gina Lynn's video. It was great. I read the deep. And then when I heard how the story came about, I had to go find the song and everything else related to it. Yes. Got it in Jerry and Tati. I'll try pet. I tried Freshwater too and put it down. So I'm noticing a pattern, Esther. So if you put down Freshwater and you put down the deep, there are some similarities between the two. Yeah. So one is the nonlinear timelines and the multidimensionality of the plot. So in Freshwater, part of the plot takes place in the brain, like the brain soul space.
That I have heard. And it's it's like this separation.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay.
So so yeah, maybe we can chat about that. Because there's a whole bunch of books that do that you would also probably not like, but are also quite interesting. Like, so for example, Unraveling by Dr. Karen Lord and also Redemption in Indigo, both of those books do that nonlinear timelines, spiral plots, right? Meaning that they circle back to the same point, but at a different point in time.
Caleb actually just put, because it's going to be way down in the comments, that they found pet more approachable because Freshwater was hard to get into because of things like the timeline. So, and other things, they didn't know how to describe it. So, yeah.
Okay. Let's keep going because it's now 8 minutes after the time we're supposed to finish. Do you have time to talk more?
I'm good.
This is the last one, so I feel like
I'm good. We haven't even talked about a faith book yet.
No, I know.
We've had such a good time talking about faith and what faith means. We haven't got to a book.
Woo, okay. Let's
I don't know what those pronouns are. I need a lesson because I'm still learning. Like, and Jerry will tell you, I will fuck up a pronoun in a heartbeat and am fine with being told that I'm doing it so that I can correct it. So I need schooling on what the fae pronouns are.
You know what? Since we're both cisgender, we need to school ourselves. So you and I will go and do that research.
Yeah.
So that we can not put that label on the people who are non-binary, gender non-binary, because I don't know either, and it's I need to learn that and figure that out. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks, Caleb.
We will do that. Thank you for the information. I didn't know that. That interview between Rivers and Emezi discussing the death of Vivek OJ was dream come true for sure.
Okay.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So I need to refresh Road Water and then Vivek OG before I watch.
Yeah.
That interview. I'm
I think
never gonna watch it.
already said that. Yeah. I also so the other recommendation, not that anybody asked, but the other recommendation for nonlinear stories is listening to them.
Mm-hmm.
A good narrator can help you follow along, right?
Can I speak on this comment from Caleb right quick? Because this is something that there's a Buffy here. Bothers me sometimes when I listen, and I've changed who I watch on BookTube, so I have not encountered it much in the past couple of years. But I truly believe that people don't give like there are people who expect books to catch them within the first 30 to 50 pages, and no. Like, we're still building shit. Like I don't understand how if you have a book that's 300 pages long, the expectation is that in the first 50 pages it's going to grab you and you're just going to not want to put it down, because that to me says that you're not looking for a book that has any depth to it, because you're still I saw your face. Because it's like reading. There's no way for me to pretty this up. It's like reading from an infantile perspective. There's no way for a book to be 300 pages long and you to get through the first 50 pages and be like, oh my God, this is so good, I can't put the book down. And not saying that it could never happen, but my God, can you have some faith in a book's ability and an author's ability to write a story that's more complex than you falling in love with it in 50 pages? Like,
so I agree. And I was born in a decade where we didn't have Wikipedia, Twitter posts, and Facebook status updates, or Google, or even email. And so like I come from a history of reading books. And so I was very perplexed when booktubers would say, I read this book, but I DNF'd it after 100 pages. I'm like, then you didn't
read the
book.
You didn't read the book. Poor example, but an example I'm going to share. When the Left Behind series came out, I loved that series. It's not the best written series, but it is very entertaining for those of us who have a similar faith base. But in order to enjoy the first book, you have to get to page 101. After page 101, the next 220 something pages fly by. But if you don't get to page 101,
what did they do, Tati? What did the pages do?
Fly by. But if you don't get to 101, you're not going to have that reading experience. And that's how I grew up reading. Same.
You didn't have reading a book. Like reading a book. So this is just a lesson on reading a book. So this is the deep. It starts at page 1. And it ends at page 166.
So you are not going to read the first 15 pages of the deep.
Yeah.
And fall in love with the novel.
Right. So if you've read this, if you started reading it and you read pages 1 to 70, you didn't read the deep. Because the deep goes to page 166. Right? You didn't finish it. So the proper terminology is I started the deep. Mm-hmm. I began reading the deep, right? And so I think like and you didn't finish a series if it has 4 books and you read 3. That's what we call an unfinished series. So you can't have
you didn't finish the book. If you sped read, if you didn't like the first 3 chapters, you skimmed chapters 4 through 57 and then read the end. You didn't read a book.
No, you skimmed it.
Yes. So there is a difference.
Yeah. So these are the books I skimmed in March. That's the title of it. Right? And so that's important because we're talking about that's
a whole valid video series.
We're talking about faith,
yes,
trust, accountability, right?
Yes.
I read Children of Blood and Bone twice before I put up my review of it. Twice. Because I was like, I am going to say some things and I have to be accountable to the text.
Let's finish that sentence. I'm going to say some things that Tati doesn't like.
And everybody, because I know that it was a hyped book.
Mm-hmm.
It still is. And Jimmy Fallon had thoughts about it. So I'm like, if I'm going to say something, then I need to own up to it. I need to actually first of all read the whole thing, and then read it again before I put thoughts to paper, right? Or thoughts to video. Okay, so Gina Renee, welcome. Pet was amazing. It was very accessible. It was revealed in ways that captured me as a reader. Totally respected the intelligence of the. Oh, can we talk about respecting the intelligence of the reader? So Regina Renee, I have questions for you on that. And Regina Renee, I believe that you work in the library system. I think you said that once. So I would love to hear your comments on respecting
the way that you remember things that people say is just like.
I remember things that people say the way you remember plots and characters.
Well, yes, you do. You do.
You have a way, you like, I read that in a decade and here's everything that happened and all the people and everything, so that's amazing. So thank you. And also you're great. So Regina Renee, like, respecting the intelligence of the reader, right? So for me, what that means is the writer is saying, look, I trust your imagination to fill any space that I leave vacant, right? I trust in your cognitive capacity to walk with me on this journey. Say it.
Some people don't have that cognitive capacity. I don't have no more wine to sip, so
I think, and I'm not talking about cognitive capacity I shouldn't use that term really in an
that's the real thing. There are authors, and neither one of us are saying that authors who overwrite or over explain things is a bad thing. Case in point, Alexander Cheese, The Queen of the Night. The descriptions that she puts into the landscape of Italy, where the main character is during the time period of the Second World War, it's not relying on the reader to have seen any pictures of what damaged towns overseas look like after the Germans came through bombing shit. But it's still a very good book, and you get the character walking through all of this. It's a different way of writing versus, and we're gonna go back to River Solomon, describing the Aster going through the shafts in the generation ship and how they maneuver their way through the shafts in the generation ship. And cognitively, this is what I mean, where all of a sudden I understood where everything was going and where Aster was. You don't know that they're going up when it sounds like they're going around. But all of a sudden it's
And I feel like I like River Solomon was Giselle the other character in the name started with a G. Friend. Friend. So
friend and sister.
Yeah, and I felt like I was trusted in the rendering of that particular character, right? Like especially when writers, when authors are portraying mental illness too, right? Like it might be an experience that I don't necessarily have. And Emezi does this stunningly, like masterfully. Emezi, and I could go on and I will not.
You're going to divert me from my January TBR.
That's fine, because TBRs are a thing of 2020 for me, I gotta say. So for me, like Emezi's ability to give you like, and now we're inside the brain. Now we're inside a non-human character that has not been fully described, that has like this ephemeral form, that's speaking in this weird poetic way. Like, you know what I mean? Like this is, and I'm gonna let your imagination decide what this looks like, whether it's good, bad, or gray. Like I'm gonna trust that I don't need to overwrite all of this, right? I don't need to tell you that Hermione took the potion, put it in her mouth, and it was green, and then it went down in a viscous manner, and then her head hurt, and then all of a sudden she was really super small. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't need to say all of that stuff because I write well and I trust you to read well. And so like that is really it's
that was shade, y'all.
So,
that was shade.
I actually DNF'd Freshwater because I found the style of writing difficult to read, but because my Black book circle has widely broadened over the last year, I plan to revisit Freshwater, and like that I love, right? I'm gonna come back to it. And when you come back to it, you still might hate it, right?
Yeah.
Or not hate it, but you know,
but not it still may not mesh for you.
Yeah, thank you.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
It is perfectly okay to read a book that does not mesh for you and say this was not the book for me.
Yeah.
That's perfect. We do that with humans. Well, we should do that with humans. This is not the human for me.
Yes.
It would save us a lot of time.
You know what is a really funny thing that I've noticed? So until I saw a video that made fun of the whole, like, I let go of breath I didn't realize I was holding.
You didn't notice how often it was in books?
I didn't notice that. And then I heard about it through BookTube, right?
And now you notice it everywhere.
Oh my gosh. Everybody's holding their breath and not realizing it. I'm like, right? And now I'm reading stories that make fun of that, right? Like I think LL McKinney does it. It was just like, I almost, but there's like there's some moments in other books where they now make fun of that. They talk about this breathing thing and it's sarcastic. And I think that's a way, that's an example of like trusting your reader.
Yeah. And I also hate BookTube for that. Because I never noticed it before, and now every time I see it, I roll my eyes. But also when I do it, like if I watch an action movie, which outside of the Marvel MCU movies, I don't really watch anymore. But if I watch an action movie and it gets me, I realize that I forgot to breathe, and then I think about I released the breath that I didn't know I was holding. Well, damn it, I'm a cliche.
Freshwater was definitely a bit more difficult for me to get through. I was worried it was too smart for me, LOL, but I did enjoy it once I made it through, though I'll definitely need to reread. You know what? Like I've had that experience with many books. I'm having that experience with Dahlgren. Like I'm like, I think I need to grow up before I can read.
I had that experience with Babel 17.
Oh my word. Yeah, like it was, and I mean, anytime.
That was so far over my head. So far over my head.
Yeah. I actually, when I was first introduced to Octavia Butler, I didn't know what the hell was going on. Like when I first read Dawn, I was like, okay. I was like,
oh, I read that whole series back to back in a month and had the biggest panic attack in the middle. What the hell have I done to myself?
Yeah, I didn't know that a book could leave you somersaulted in midair. Like I didn't know that was a thing that a book could do.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I grew up on Charlotte's Web. Like I'm not ready for all of this, right?
Wilbur.
Right? Wilbur. Right? So the first time, I had no idea. The first time I read Nalo Hopkinson's Brown Girl in the Ring, the only thing I remember from my first read was that I felt seen. But ask me what happened, I was like,
the first time I read Brown Girl in the Ring was 2020, and the entire time I was reading it, I was like, if I don't like this, and Jerry's gonna hate me.
Yeah, I wouldn't have hated you at all.
But you would have judged me accordingly.
Yeah, and then I would have like dealt with myself. Because I'm not going to be less judgmental, but I can be less wedded to my judgments.
I appreciate that.
Right. But like, and you even said it, you're like, I hope I like this for the sake of our friendship. But like the first time I read Brown Girl in the Ring, I was like, this is incredible. Also, I'm not sure I got all of it. right? The first time I read Midnight Robber as well, right? And I feel like, yeah, a lot of people feel that way when they're approaching fantasy. And I think that's why a lot of people are afraid of fantasy, because they're like, I'm not sure that I'm going to get it. And I don't want to feel bad about it.
Don't read it to get it. Don't read it. Don't put that pressure on you. Don't read it to get it.
Yeah.
Read it, and if you reach a part that you don't understand, reread that part.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
That's the way I feel about poetry. I overthink poetry, and I find it very hard to read poetry sometimes. Especially poetry that's very traditional in, like, you know what I mean? Like I started reading this poetry book by Kanissia Lubin. I think is her name, Kanissia Lubin. And I was like, this book is affecting my self-esteem. I have to stop. It's award-winning and it's affecting my self-esteem. Like I'm like, I have to wait. I have to wait. The audiobook for Freshwater helped me get through that one. Yes. We discussed so many other things. Yeah. We're eventually going to get to what we're here to do at 7:30. Thanks for the advice, all who commented on Mezzi and Solomon. Definitely one of those people, but read short books though. That's why I like to reread, because it's just over my head the first time without a broad scale perspective. Yes. I put information about fate. Thank you for
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you think it differs by genre? It might. Yeah, I think it might, for sure. I feel differently about science fiction, and then like I try not to.
I think this was in response to the how many pages to read to feel like you're into a book.
Yeah.
And I will definitely say, like, for a YA fantasy novel, it takes fewer pages for me to get into it, even if the world building isn't complete, because I feel like a lot of times with YA fantasy, it's more concentration on the characters, not necessarily the building of the world. So it takes me, I could get into that in 50 to 75 pages.
Yeah.
Versus a book that starts out, like when I read, what's the first one in the Inheritance trilogy, the 100,000 Kingdoms. When I read that, there's a lot of world building in that. So it's going to probably take me 150 pages to actually get into that story. And I may need to reread, like you've done with Dogman, I may need to reread a couple of the first 150 pages again.
Yeah. There was, and then there's also like emotional responses to things. Like when I started reading this, I've started reading the first book in this trilogy. I doubt anybody on this list would have heard of this. This is Sarah Raleigh. This is the Effigy series. And I think I got to the first 70 pages. Now, she's a Southern Ontarian writer, Black woman, fantasy trilogy. And I started reading the first book, and I realized like I'm not really in the mood for it yet, because I think it's a Black girl realizing that she's an effigy. She's a superhero kind of. And everything, like the world is going crazy and she's a superhero, but I don't think she realizes it yet in the first book, or she's just becoming one. But she ends up meeting this superhero, and the superhero is like, I think, strong and blonde and tall and skinny. And I was just like,
it's like Mrs. Marvel.
Yeah, kind of like that. And I was just like, I can't.
Not in the space for that. I can't
3 books, and I'm sure it's gonna change, but I'm not ready. I'm not ready for it, right? So I think so. For me, I have to return to it for research purposes. I want to read this. I want to know, but I'm also not ready to go there. And that only took me 50 or so pages to be like, ooh, yeah, not ready. But I wouldn't say it's a bad book. I can't.
Right.
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 Yeah. So page count definitely matters. Yeah. There were no lies detected anywhere there. Not 11 books. Oh boy. Oh, what do you say, Tati? You could shade a whole. That's
a whole beach on a sunny summer day.
Oh, I try not to DNF a book until I've read 2/3 at least. I've only DNF 3 books this year, but it was only because they were just not for me. Yeah,
like,
and I'm sure you wouldn't say that I read them.
Yeah, I DNF'd The Goblin Emperor by Catherine Addison, and I only had 75 pages left to go. And I was like, fuck it.
Yeah. Okay. Oh my gosh, I got to the end.
Wow. Okay.
So now that we're an hour and a half in, would you like to talk about books that reflect Imani?
I only really,
or a book?
Yeah, the 2 books that I would speak on for things that I read this year are going to make you happy, because they're both Nalo books, and that's Brown Girl in the Ring and then Midnight Robber. Because in Brown Girl in the Ring, you have a young girl who is learning about, after years of not being connected to, even though she's living with a practicing medicine woman, not being connected to that part of her history, not being connected to that part of her grandmother's faith, and she has no choice but to learn it. And then in order to learn it and carry it out, she has to trust and build faith in the community that these like ruffian kids who one rescues her, when she gets into a difficult situation, and she has to trust these kids to help her. And it's her building her faith in her community after she has had an experience where, and also it's her grandmother's faith in her, because her grandmother never casts her out and never gives up on her carrying on the legacy of the family.
Yeah.
In spite of her resistance to that. So yeah, that was one that I picked. And then that was what I picked for my video. And then for Midnight Robber, you have this poor little baby who loses all her faith in her daddy and has to learn how to create a relationship with, again, a community of people. So as not to give things away, but a community of people who also have faith in her and faith in her to keep their secret and to protect them while they are protecting her. And at the same time working to find her own way and to build, because she loses a lot of, and losing her faith in her father, she also loses a lot, I think, of trust in her own self.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So those were the 2 that I would pick right off the top of my head. And those are just books that I read, in 2020. So yeah.
Midnight Robber.
It trips me out that, like, exactly where your books are on your shelves. I wish I did. And mine are alphabetized.
So fun fact, I have a little bit of a photographic memory, which is kind of cool. So I don't know where they are, but I can visualize where they are.
Okay.
Right? So that's part of what.
That's very cool.
Which is why I annotate as well, because it helps me remember. But we won't get into that because I don't want you to feel uncomfortable.
Thank you.
Oh
gosh.
So yes, the books I skimmed in March. Yes. Oh, okay. This is the response to Hello Whitney, the reader fan. Publishers did a great job publishing that book. If only the author had the kind of energy for the people who inspired it. Woo!
I might need some tequila after that. Damn, Whitney. Jeez. Wow.
Regina Renee. Yes, I am a librarian. I manage the readers advisory department in a public library. Okay. For me, writers who respect readers don't spoon feed info. Yes. They trust. They have
the reader, yes.
Money. They trust the readers to engage, investigate, and research.
Yes. And that's what, that's part of what I did in reading Brown Girl in the Ring.
Yeah.
And also reading, it's not a book by a Black author, but also reading City of Dark Magic by Magnus Flight, which is set in Prague. Because although I've been to Toronto, I was very young when I went to Toronto, and we went to the sites for tourists during that time. So I had to actually pull up a map of like the Toronto landscape in the 80s and some pictures of the Toronto landscape around what is the building called? The building with during that time, so that I could get in my mind where it was. And then also for City of Dark Magic, I pulled up some of the infrastructure to try and figure out where this palace was located, because there seemed to be so many convenient things around it. Like it's this small Hallmark Christmas movie town, but it's a whole city, but everything is in walking distance, and that's not something that I'm familiar with. So I had to look into that. Like the things that's walking distance to me are not a museum.
Got you.
So
thank you for that, Regina Renee. Yes, I am leaving. I'm probably going to leave them in 2020. Not a viscous man, not a viscous man. Where's the light? What about a story that is inspired by true events, but it is not widely known? In regard to the reader's imagination, I'm working on a fictional story where I'm explaining the history, so I'm curious. So what about a story that is inspired by true events, but it is not widely known? The events are not widely known. In regard to the reader's imagination, I'm working on a fictional story where I'm explaining the history, so I'm curious. Yeah,
I would dare say, and this is my own preference, so you can take it with a grain of salt or you can leave it on the beach. I would prefer as a reader, that if you are writing something that is based on or has historical significance, that the Googleable facts are correct. Because I have read some stories where the Googleable facts were not correct. And it's it bothers me.
Yeah, I like what Regina Renee said just above Cordelia. They trust readers to engage, investigate, and research. And Regina Renee is an expert in this area. And I think that's the answer to your question, right? Does your writing reflect that you trust readers to engage, investigate, and research? I've seen books that say, this is based on the blah, blah, blah period of Zay. And in the first paragraph, right? In the first, like in the little blurb right after the dedication, like the events are based on the historical whatever, like Nisi Shaw's Everfair, I think, does something like that, where it's like, this is what this story is based on, and now, like, it used to be there and now it's gone, and I literally have no idea where Everfair is. But yeah, like, there it is. I knew I was looking in the right spot. But I think the blurb at the back will say something, or it'll say in the front. Yeah, exactly. Historical note, right? So this novel derives from one of history's most notorious atrocities, King Leopold's whatever. So Cordelia, do your research, look at Nisi Shaw's, look at the historical note. After that, right? Yeah, like, read this. Get Nisi Shaw's Everfair, read that. Also get Wayetu Moore's She Would Be King.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Yeah. Look at that. Lots of books that are inspired by true events, right? We'll set that out and we'll give the reader some direction and then take off into fiction.
Yeah. Because Wayetu Moore's She Would Be King is 3 significant events that are all linked to one major historical happening. So it's
okay, so we are rounding on Goodreads, but I still be clear and rapid, but I ended this before finishing. Yeah, exactly. Call that honesty and transparency. Yeah, you find your books so immediately.
Yeah, that's in regards to your memo, right?
We need to do a live show where we test this memory. Yes. Yes. People, somebody asked me to do the where's that book tag or whatever.
Mm-hmm. The do I have that book
Do
tag?
I have that book?
Yeah.
I want to do that. I want to do that.
And like do it with the open timer going, and then like speed it up for the times when you're searching. But yeah, I would be intrigued to see how long it takes you to find a book that fits each prompt.
Yeah. Gina, thank you for telling me that you read the first book in the Effigies series and you really enjoyed it. Okay, good. That makes me feel better. Because you liked a Kata Witch and you saw things in a Kata Witch that I also saw, so I trust that. So that's great. Yes, author's notes and afterwards are very helpful. Which does not mean much, honestly, because I had a low bar earlier this year. Well, now you gone and done it, Gina. A 3-minute. All right. Okay, so I think, tell me, what do you think? You think it's a good time to wrap up?
Almost
double time is a good time. Sorry?
Tommy's like, yeah.
Because we share this living space. You're welcome. You're most welcome. Thanks for taking the feedback, Cordelia. All right. So while Tati is thinking about her closing remarks, I have a few things. Number one, thank you to everyone who has participated in the Cozy Kwanzaa Reflectathon. This has been my favorite round of the Kwanzaa Reflectathon because it's just been brought to life by these live shows, and everybody who came on and who had conversations with me, everybody said yes right away. You took time out of your schedule during a very busy holiday season. And I know that everybody who's been on the Onyx pages has had stuff happen in 2020. And knowing that you took time away from your everyday life to think about books, to come on to talk about books with me and Tomi, and everyone in the chats, like that has meant a lot to me. So I just want to thank you, Tati, and all the people like Bree and Sherri and Brittany who are watching and in the chats who also did that. It means a lot to me personally. And so thank you for being a part of this year. I'd also like to thank everybody who uploaded videos, and that I know that, again, it's a very, very busy time. Not everybody was able to do it, and that I understand as well. So thank you very much for doing that. I am going to be, not today, but in a subsequent, like in a wrap up, because I haven't done my video with my 7 books. So I'll be doing that. And when I do that, I will announce the winner of the reading planner from Melanin Eclectic, which is up there, but it's wrapped, so you can't see it. But maybe Tati will get hers out. Like, I don't know, because she has time, because I'm giving
it. Mine is right. I can get it.
Yeah. So, so there's that. And I also wanted to tell you that I'm going to be hosting a vision board workshop January 16th, 2021. So if you are interested, the early bird price is no longer applicable. It is $150. If that is challenging for you, but you would still like to come, just send me an email, because some people have purchased tickets for donation to others. So yes, that is the Melanin Eclectic 2021 reading planner with a surprise. So you still have the rest of today to put up your hashtag Kwanzaa Reflectathon videos. I will be putting all of the videos into a hashtag, and the hashtag will be in the description of my wrap-up video so that you can watch all of the videos and support all the content creators who have put videos out. So there is that. Okay, so let's just see. Tomi, I don't know, Tomi, do you have anything to say to the people?
Thank you, everyone. Happy end of Kwanzaa.
Happy end of Kwanzaa.
Keep building your TBRs.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks, baby. Favorite, and also I'm like, this was your only. So thanks for your time. You're welcome. Favorite, hella biased because you were a guest and amazing one. Shout out to Tommy. Yes, you really appreciated this. Thanks, babe. Thank you, Tommy. Hi, Brittany. Thanks for hosting. It's our first. Oh, I'm so glad you enjoyed it.
Oh, yay!
Yay, newbie. And Gina, I'm glad that you participated. Thank you, Sherri. Wait, did I? Yeah, I did say Sherri. Yeah, I did say Sherri. Okay. Excited about the vision board. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for creating a space.
It's about the vision board.
Yes. Intentional and thank you. Thank you. I tried to be, and I learned things from all of you. So this is great. All right. So Tati, do you want to close us off? Have the final word?
I would impress upon those of you who are watching now, as those of you who, and also those of you who will watch this back, to take the 7 principles of Kwanzaa and look at how they apply to your everyday, and look at how you can work these Kwanzaa principles and make them part of your daily existence. Because it's nice to reflect on them at the end of December and as we start the new year, but also these are things that if we actually focused on living and working in, it would make our lives a lot richer. And a lot of us already feel like we have rich lives because we have great communities and we have great families or great found families. So add to that, working through these Kwanzaa principles and taking the mindset of, I'm going to intentionally include these in how I go about and do life. So that's my final word. And how you relate to people, how you relate to yourself, how you relate to what you take in, media, books, whatever. Apply it. It's great.
So just running through the last comments.
I can't. Do not do the last one. Do not do it. No.
Amen. And hallelujah. Bye, everyone. Read with purpose. Happy 2021. We will see you on all of our content pages. Be kind to yourself, be kind to each other, which is what Noria says. Love yourself. Read a book. Be nice. Drink your water. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye, everyone. Thank you.